All right, welcome back. This time around, we're going to play with just a little bit of UV wrapping. Very, very basic stuff. And as a matter of fact, I want to show you about the limit of our modeling today. And there it was. We're going to make a cube. Frame in on that. I'm going to move him up. Make him a little bigger. Then we'll feel like we did something. All right, there's a cube. I'm going to make another one. Same thing. I'm going to drag him out. I just duplicated this one. I did Command D. And we'll rotate him around. We'll make this interesting. Sure. Now, so these are just cubes. And if we go to our UV editor, regardless of which one is selected, then the UV editor is going to show us the same thing, which is this Tetris looking T-shape laid out. And this is how a cube is by default unwrapped. Any standard cube, before you start messing with it and pulling on vertices and adding to it, this is what it looks like. So we're going to take this and make sure it's all selected. There we go. Now with it selected, because if you do it with nothing selected, you'll get nothing out of this. So with the whole thing selected, I'm going to go ahead and click on UV Snapshot, and we'll make this at least 512. We're in that folder, images, and this is going to be, we're going to make some more dice. All right, so we've saved this out as a template for Photoshop. I'm going to come down here to Photoshop. Let me go find that thing and open it up. Should be Documents, My Projects, My Project folder, the Saved into the Images folder, and there it is. So now we've got an outline layer, I'm going to rename it, of what our dice is, or whatever our cube is going to look like. I'm going to make another layer down here, and I'll just go ahead and make another one while I'm at it. I'll drag outline to the top. Layer 1 is going to be our background. And I'm going to use the black and white here. I'm actually going to make a black and a little bit gray. I mean a white and gray here. So now I've got white and I've got gray. I'm going to flip them. I'm going to paint in on this background layer the white, and then I'm going to come up here to Filter and Render Clouds. And we've got the gray and the white, both my colors, and just kind of a cloudy texture. So it's going to be a little bit fancier than standard dice. It's going to be marbled, so we can see some things later on. And here in layer 2, I guess I could just do shapes. We'll start here with the number 1. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and drag. Shift just keeps it perfectly round. I want the inside of that to be black. And this means no stroke around it, so great. Drag that up. I don't need this anymore. So now that I've got my dot, we're going to do some trickery here. I'm actually going to hold down the Alt key or Option, depending on which keyboard you have, with my move selection on, and that will create a copy of this. And I'll drag it up here. I'll just keep doing that. And so I know on the direct opposite of 1, I want 6. So luckily in Creative Cloud, it it just automatically gives us these cool little template lines so we can drag them out nicely. So 1 and 6, right on the other side of 1 is 2. So we'll drag him out. And I'm just Alt and click dragging this guy out to get more dots. And you see I'm just making new layers every time I do this. So I'm going to hold down Alt again, drag this one up, because on the opposite side of 2 should be 5. Looks a little off. We won't worry about it for now. And I'm going to come back over here because now I need to start on the 3. And then 4 on the other side. Yes, there are much cleaner ways to do this, but this is the way we're doing it now. All right. So that looks good. We've got kind of our marbled look. The 5 looks off to me, but I don't want to go around and figure out which dot is off. So I'm going to turn off the outline, and with this marbled texture, I'm just going to save this. All right, we can save the PSD so we can come back and edit layers later. So we'll save the PSD first. And I'm going to save a PNG for my actual texture. And name that with the M for material. Great. Now we'll go back to Maya. Don't need that anymore. All right, use this button over here to pull out the hypershade. We'll use a blend to keep it shiny. Name it M-Dice, and here's my color swatch. I click on that 2D file, and I'm going to come click the folder, look at my images folder for M-Dice. Right, I'm going to go back to my perspective view. Go to object mode. I still had UV shell on. So I'm going to right click on this, assign existing material, and dice. Do the same over here. We don't see it yet because I need to put 6 on my keyboard. And now we've got our dice. You can see that marbled look just adds a little bit to it. So that's cool. We'll do a quick render of it. All right, I'm going to Command D and pull a copy of this out, and we're going to see what would happen if we started manipulating the mesh after we textured it. All right, so let's say we do want this to look like a Tetris block. So we go to face mode. I'm going to click on this face, go to my modeling toolkit, and I want to extrude that out. By 3. Come up here and do the same. And we'll do it once more. We'll make that full L shape. So as you can see, go to object mode and zoom in, not shell, object. There we go. Zoom in on this guy. As you can see, what we did is we preserved our 1, which was on that side, and the 2 that was on the top. But everywhere that we stretched and extruded out, we just took that marbled texture and stretched it out. So this looks like, you know, your silly putty or something after you've got an image on it and then you stretch it. And that's what the UV does, which you texture and then start modeling. So everything else was preserved that we didn't mess with, right? And so we'll make this look even more like a Tetris piece. And we'll cap those out, hit extrude, keep faces together off. Come up by like 0.2, and we'll offset by 0.2. All right, so we were already stretchy over here. Now we're just even stretchier. And if we zoom in here, let me just zoom in on this particular face. And you can tell just a little bit that, yeah, we did the same kind of stretching here as we did. And if we compare them side by side, as I drag this one over, right, when we shrunk that face down, the 4 got smaller than the 4 was over here. So just a goofy way to show that you want to do your texturing after you do everything else. That way it maps up nicely. All right, so we got some dice, and we got this funny looking Tetris block. I'm going to duplicate this one and pull it up. And since this is a completely unaltered cube, then any other cube texture that we throw on there should be fine. So I'm going to go back into Photoshop. We've got our dice layers. I'm going to grab all of those. So starting with that, all the way down to background. I'll hold down Shift and select them all, and I'm going to try and put them into a group. There we go. So that's that group. We can turn that off. I'm going to come up with a completely new texture for this cube. We'll start with black. Paint that out. And we'll use a brown. Come down to shapes and rectangles. Actually, let me just zoom in here for a little bit. I'm just going to work on one section at a time. We'll start up here. So I've got my rectangle, no stroke, brown fill. So that's about halfway. That's fine. We'll go with halfway. And we'll guess there. I've got a brown brick. Move it over a bit so we can have a gap. And we'll do the same thing. I'm just going to hold down Alt. And start moving it around. I think we had 10 apart over there. Now it's centered. All right, now that I've got a start of a pattern, I'm going to grab all 5 of these. I'm going to right click and I'm going to merge them. All right, now I've got one layer with those, and I'm going to start doing the same thing. So Alt and drag. And it looks like, well, we got the width right, they're a little too tall. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab the two layers. I'm going to merge these shapes, and I'm going to come up here to edit, and we're going to scale this just a bit. Until it fits just inside. Click on the move button and then click apply, and now we've got a new block shape. All right, I'm going to come out a bit. I'm going to go down to 200 on my zoom. I'm just going to drag this one down, and this will be the start of this whole thing. I'll click up again, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rotate that around so that they match up. Go back to this one, Alt drag up. And hopefully what we're doing is we're creating some continuity, at least along this axis. I'll flip my original. And so as we look along this line of the cube itself, it should look like this is the side and this is the top of one brick, and they'll just keep going in that way. Now the only problem is going to be these two pieces on this side. I think what I'm going to do is, I believe this is, yes, that's the one I need. So I'm going to come in with my rectangular marquee and fill up that outline, hit delete. Interesting. All right, let me rasterize this. Rasterize the layer. Now I should be able to delete it. There we go. Same thing on this side. Command D to deselect. All right, now I've got this layer. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come to my move tool. I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to drag it over. And drag another one back, holding down Alt. And we should have filled up all of our outline. Where these sides hit probably aren't going to match up nicely, but we could edit that later if we wanted to. I just want to make this as an example. So before I do anything else, let me grab, again, all of these. Holding down Shift and getting all those, and then if I right-click on this folder group, and then everything I just created goes into it. So I'll save this. Just Command S will just save this into my Photoshop file. Let's go ahead and name our groups just for fun, just so we know what's going on later when we come back. And then I'll save this out as a new PNG. Spelling counts, even in textures. M blocks. And back to Maya. Open up Hypershade. We want this one shiny too. Why not? We'll make a new blend. Go to the attribute editor. M blocks is what we'll call it. Make sure to hit enter. And then we'll go find our file while it decides to autosave. Okay. Come back here. Let me focus in on this guy. I'm going to assign existing material, blocks. Look at that. All right. And as we thought, the top and the bottom look a little goofy, which is what those two sides ended up being. But along the sides, this looks like something usable. And I can duplicate and make more and just have fun in general. So those are a couple of simple ways just to texture a cube using the UV editor. And in our next example, we're gonna UV unwrap something a little more complex, but I wanted to make sure that the very, very basics were understood and we had some fun in the process. So let me just go ahead and save this. All right, I wanted to fix just a couple things here. Let me go back to this block. Just get rid of the second one for now, delete that, we can make more later. And what I wanted to do was find out how I can better these textures. Those line up nicely, and then here they don't. All right, see, so it looks like I've got the long end of the brick and then short. And we got two short ends here, two short ends there. So it looks like this piece right here needs to be flipped, and then the top and the bottom still don't quite line up with everything. So I'm going to open up the UV editor. And I'm going to try and shrink this down so I can see both the UV editor and the mesh at the same time. Drag that over. And you can see when I select a face, I can figure out which one's being shown. So I've got the top selected here, and it's showing it's the first piece up from the bottom, which should make that the very top piece in the texture. So now I know where the top and the bottoms are. And this one that needs to be flipped is actually the central one, the base. So that's a cool little feature as far as the UV texturing goes, right? That mapping to let us know what's what. So we flip that one in the middle, and then the one just above it and the very top are the top and bottom. So let me go back to Photoshop. Still got my stuff open here. Expand this group. And sure enough, that's the one. So with that, let me just try and do a flip on that. Rotate it 180. That should line up nicely now. So we've got long, short, short, long. So those match. And now we know that this group and the very top are our top and bottom. So let's start with the top here. And that's not it. There it is. We found the layer. That's this one. We'll name it so we can identify it later. All right. And it's matching up nicely here, but it's not matching here and not matching on the sides. So what I'm going to do is probably just break it up. So I've got part of the top. I'm going to do a layer via cut. So that made me a new layer right above it, or it should have. Try that again. Oh, but because I didn't rasterize it. All right, let me rasterize this layer. Now I cut it, and you can see I got that literally cut out. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the top, grab this piece of the top, do the same thing, layer via cut. I'll hide him for now. And this one I want to drag down. Why aren't you dragging? Oh, I've got the wrong layer selected. And I drugged the wrong one. So I drugged this one. See, I had layer 3 selected, and even though it wasn't highlighted, it was moving. So I'll just move that up out of the way. Layer 2 is what I want to move down. Just use the arrow to nudge it. And let me turn the outline off. There we go. That looks better. So they match up on those sides, but they should have, it looks like 2 long pieces here. So actually I'm going to take layer 3, I'm going to take the top and cut it up again. Cut it up some more. Let me hide that layer. Take this piece of top, that's still top, and cut that as well. And name those, and I'm going to select them both and rotate them by 90 degrees. And then start moving them one at a time.
What are you doing?
Just trying to nudge these down so they look like they're even. So we got some overhangs still on both sides. Alright, I'm going to move this one over. Just using my arrow key to move these around. So it looks like it should line up. It doesn't quite line up there, interestingly. So let me find that. That's that copy. So I'm going to nudge that one over, which means I need to nudge over even more. Alright, they should line up again, all the way down. Nope. No, it's actually this top piece that's out. So let me nudge that over, and now they look like they line up better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste these back together. These 4 pieces that are supposed to be the top. So I'm going to merge those layers. Alright, and I'm going to drag around that outline. I'm going to put Command or Control Shift and I and invert the selection. I'm going to delete everything that's outside of it. So Command D to deselect, and it looks like I've got that pretty good. One last thing I'm going to do is fill that in with another brick. Alright, just so we got something on the top. Let me rasterize that, and then I'm going to merge it with this. Okay, so now I've got a top again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that with my Alt and drag. Now I've got a new one, and I'll drag that up to the top, which will be the bottom of our texture. And then I will hide this copy. Oh, see, we're gonna have a problem on that bottom. So I'll bet I just need to flip that around now.
Quick, there's some food that I don't want it. It's so liquid. I'm scared.
Let me transform 90 degrees. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was, I'm assuming. Alright, let's resave that. Save as. I want that to be the blocks. Make sure it's a PNG. Go back to Maya. Don't need the UV editor anymore. So it still has our old on it. Actually, it looks like we accidentally saved out with our outline still showing on that one. Alright, so we'll open this up and we'll go to M blocks, which is the texture in our thing, and then we'll just reload. Alright, so now we've got, looks like it lines up all the way around, lines up on the top, and it lines up on the bottom. I think that's much better, except for that bottom piece right there. We've still got some gap. It lines up. Right, as far as that middle piece, it looks like I just need to add some brown there. And it is on the bottom. So we'll open up the UV editor again, just to double check that. Face, yeah, it's the very top piece. It just needs some, I think I can see it right in there. But anyway, that's easily fixable. That's a much better, I think, a much better brick. And now, when I zoom out, back to where we were, and I can make a new one, Command D, drag that over. Whoops, just want to drag it on the one axis. And I think if I grab this and rotate it at 90 degrees, could almost look like they're continuing one another. Yeah, pretty cool. Alright. So that's maybe a better way to do our texturing. Looks good.